and a warm welcome to this meeting of the Standing Committee on Agriculture, Environmental Affairs and Development Planning. Today is Wednesday, the 28th of February, 2024, and it has just gone 9 o'clock. This is a virtual meeting via MS Teams, which will also be available on the YouTube channel. Honourable members, my name is Andrikus van der Westhuizen, and I'm privileged to be the chair of this Standing Committee of the Western Cape Provincial Parliament. And with this, I would like to welcome you and give you an opportunity to just introduce yourselves for the record as well. Over to you, honourable members.
Good morning, Chairperson, and good morning, colleagues and staff. My name is Derek America, and I'm a member of the committee.
Good morning, Chair. Good morning, everyone. My name is Kayla Murray, and I'm a member of the committee.
Good morning. I'm Peter de Villiers, and I'm a member of this committee.
Thank you very much, honourable members. We are therefore quorate. We did indeed receive the apology from the Honourable Pat Maran, who indicated that he won't be able to attend this morning's meeting, and also that his alternates for this meeting are also not available. Honourable members, the purpose of this morning's meeting is to deliberate on the submissions received in respect of the Climate Change Bill, B9B of 2022, which has been referred to us from the NCOP for our input and comments. As we learned yesterday in our meeting, there have been various inputs, and we've also yesterday been introduced not only to the bill, but also in the same meeting to the responses by the National Department of Environmental Affairs on the submissions that we have received. And that has been kindly put in a matrix of issues raised, as well as then the comments made by the National Department. We also yesterday heard arguments from various other parties. Honourable members, in order for us to structure our discussion this morning, I would like to propose that we look at the matrix, as the matrix contain both proposals for consideration, but also in some cases more of a comment on the bill. For example, one aspect which seems to be strongly put by a number of people is that they would like this piece of legislation to have more teeth, or that there should be a sense of urgency with tighter timelines, etc. Now, obviously, these are then for us to consider and to decide whether we want to include that in our eventual negotiating mandate. So the way I see the process this morning is for us to deliberate on this using the matrix as a source document to give some structure, but that the negotiating mandate and the mandate report will only be approved at a future meeting. I trust that is in order with you. Please raise your hands if at any stage you would like to propose differently. Now, then also to give some structure, I have emailed that matrix to Ms. Niekerk, where I've highlighted the sections which I believe may be included in our negotiating mandate. Obviously, that's only one person's opinion, and that is why we meet, because we believe that a number of people that come together have synergy and would be able to improve on the final document. So, Ms. Niekerk, in the absence of any hands, may I ask that you proceed to beam that document that I've emailed to you. I trust you've received it onto our screens.
Here we go, Chairperson.
Good, thank you very much. And if you could scroll down first to the first aspect in that table, may I just ask that you just check. I see in a few cases this gentleman is called Mr. Skalk Karstens. The normal surname spelling is Karstens with an R. and I was thinking that perhaps you may just want to check on that and perhaps then do a search and replace. And then you will also see there in the, what is it, fifth column, the wide one, where it is printed in bold, the line function of all these three spheres of government. So I believe there have been some small typos there. Honourable members, Mr. Scousins discussed there and says he's got serious concerns with the content of the climate change bill because he believes it is now elevated to a higher level than the Disaster Management Act. It is clear also in Mr. Carstens's introduction of himself that he is a professional disaster management manager, and obviously he work from a view that disaster management should be the highest function. Obviously, when a disaster is already there, and the explanation or the response from the department is to say that this whole intent of this bill is not to weaken the Disaster Management Act, but rather to reinforce the effectiveness, but also to address the frequency of natural disasters. So I thought that we can just take note of that and move on then to the next line. And please feel free to raise your hands at any stage if you would like to make an input. Again, the second one, I thought that where he chaired the international conference on mining and metallurgy, that is an input received from World Online. I think again we take note of it, but from a negotiating mandate point of view, this is more of a comment and not a proposal to improve the legislation. The same then with the input from Mr. Temba George, where he just says he supports the climate change bill. I think we note that one. That brings us to the fourth one, Green Pop, where they say that bill tends towards being reactive and gives too much influence to GHG emitters, and where they say that the allocation of GHG emission targets to industry and policy sectors should be done in a robust manner, but then also that they do not believe that the bill in itself should set those targets, etc. So if it's fine with you, honourable members, I believe we can go on to number 5. Again, input
Chairman,
from... Yes, sorry, Honourable de Villiers.
can I please go back to number 2? I combined number 2 and 86. The fact that it is a concern. I just feel that we should, the implementary of it, how to combat that warning, that we don't sit on it again as a warning, and then when we get to it, then somebody has said, "I told you so." I think the fact that the guy who posted the warning did so much research on the topic that he actually knows what he's talking about. So if we can just get across to the powers that may be that we take cognizance of the warning, and we should put everything in place to combat it. Thank you, sir.
Good, thank you. So it seems to me what you're saying is that may be included as a general comment to the NCOP in considering the eventual inputs that they would receive, not only from ourselves, but also from the other provinces. Indeed. Thank you, Ms. Nikat. You will note that. Then also, I think we were...
I shall, Chairperson.
I think we were with number 5. Okay. which says that climate change hazards are not being dealt with in the bill. Now, as they say, these aspects will be considered in detail when undertaking the scenario climate change needs assessments, adaptation goals, as well as a set of indicators to measure adaptation progress. And it seems to me as if the bill does provide for that as a result of this bill and the Provincial Presidential Climate Committee. Good. Then Project 90, they were in our meeting yesterday as well. You know, comments such as we would like to congratulate. It's a big achievement, but I don't really see any proposals, concrete proposals there to improve the bill in front of us. So I thought we could go on. Number 7, that is from the Western Cape government. It seems to me, again, general comments such as the development of the bill is welcomed. And then we will be dealing with the concerns. So 7 is just a comment. 8 is again just comment. Number 9, this is where we now go into the actual proposals to improve the bill. And I highlighted there, we must ensure that the legislation can be read together to form a coherent whole, and that the relationship between this bill and other legislation should be clarified. I would like to propose that we include that in our negotiating mandate to the NCOP. The next one, in number 10, it is recommended that the bill includes an enabling provision for the development of guidelines, that we include that in our comments as well. And again, please jump in and stop me when any of you may differ. Many draft clauses lack defined timelines, and I think we should include that in our comment or our mandate to say, please, it is so urgent that some timelines should be included. Can we go to number 12? Thank you. Again, I did not see any proposed amendment, so we go on to number 13. And although the department says no proposed amendments, I think we can differ from them and say the bill must recognize the key role played by the private sector and other non-state entities in implementing the nationally determined contributions. And it suggested that the bill recognizes and possibly spells out the roles of non-state entities in achieving the objectives for inclusion. That then number 14, it is suggested that relevant climate change considerations be integrated into the policy and planning activities of all government departments. It is, I think, while we might agree with that, again, it does not come in the form of a concrete proposal as to how that should be achieved. So we're not differing from that, but I do not see, that in the form of a proposed amendment to the bill. Ms. Nika, can we scroll down? Number 15, that provision be made to include a support plan, capacity grants and funding mechanisms for provinces, departments and municipalities to ensure that the bill can be fully implemented. I think that's a very important aspect, because this bill and the decision taken under this, should this become legislation, will definitely have financial implications for provincial departments as well as for municipalities. So the proposal is to include that in the negotiating mandate. Number 16, Again, it is submitted that consideration be given on how gender mainstreaming has been facilitated in the bill. Now, the department's response satisfied me. In this context, gender is being mainstreamed in carrying out the implementation of the bill in clause 3F. 17, I believe, should be included in our negotiating mandate. Much will be required from local municipalities and not districts, and that clarity be provided when it speaks about municipalities, that we must just distinguish between the various B and C type of local governments. I think it won't do any harm to provide or ask that the bill provide more clarity. If we can go on to number 19.
Number 18 first, Chair.
Sorry, did I miss 18? Yes, thank you. That clarity be provided as to whom should monitor and evaluate the measure of compliance with the targets by the private sector, then not through provinces and municipalities. The bill clearly outlines the functions of the Presidential Climate Commission, which are largely advisory. Monitoring and evaluation is a regulated function, but I think it should be, if we want this bill to have any teeth, monitoring and evaluation, I think, should be allocated at least to some entity. Thank you, Ms. Nikak. Number 19. In number 19, air quality management. I think it would be good if we could, in our negotiating mandate, just include reference to the fact that municipal air quality management plans must include a section on how the municipality will address and implement the obligations in respect of international agreements. You see that there, so I think that would be good for us to include. 20. The bill needs to be strengthened in some areas to ensure that it is effective. All levels of government must be given a role, and each is to ensure that there is strong political and public support for the bill to increase the chances of its successful implementation. And then again, consideration should be given to the cost of compliance and obviously who should be held responsible for those costs. So that is for possible inclusion. 20, greater investments should be provided for in the bill for public awareness and education campaigns to raise awareness of climate change and the importance of climate action. I don't think any of us can disagree with that, and that it should set more ambitious targets. And the bill does not include any specific measures to address the impact of climate change on vulnerable communities. The bill does not include any specific provisions to ensure that the transition to a low carbon economy is just and equitable, etc. So obviously in our negotiating mandate, I would request that it be worded slightly differently, where we say the bill must include specific measures, must include specific provisions, etc. But the point I would like to believe is valid and should be contained. Then 21, the bill contains language and drafting errors, and I believe that is something which yesterday the officials from the department acceded to. So I think that should be contained in our mandate report as well. Ms. Nikak, number 22, please. Don't think number 22, it's just that the department supports, so it's not necessary for an amendment to the bill. Number 23, again, that the bill states more clearly how government will enable other non-public sector players. I think I may have missed that one and would like to propose that we include that one as well, Ms. Nikak. Then number 24, the department is asking that the term fair contribution be defined. Now they say that fair contribution is underpinned by the principle of common but differentiated responsibilities in clause 3. So unless you believe differently, honourable members, I thought I'm happy for it that it is being covered. Then the term periodically is being used, and obviously there is a feeling that periodically should be changed to an exact time frame, let's say every 5 years or whatever the case may be. Now, the proposal is to be discussed with the Office of the Chief State Law Advisor at the Parliamentary Legal Advisor. Now, I think we could perhaps consider saying we're not going to be prescriptive to say yearly or bi-yearly or every 5 years, but that we could add our weight to the fact that, periodically, but not less than every 5 years, for example, may be included in the bill, because periodically is so open-ended. So in that regard, I think we could send something through to the NCOP. Then again, 26 is more of a comment. Number 27, again, it's more of a comment where they say the framework needs to be clearer. Then number 28, most of the amendments are of an administrative, minor editorial nature. Again, it's a very personal view that is being expressed here by VESA, and again, it's not a real proposal to change the bill in front of us. Then we get to 29. Therefore, therefore enacted should be in bold. Does not have to be in bold. In NEMA, and the wording is not in bold. In any case, I think that is more typographical. Then in number 30, it says the definition is not aligned to the language, yet the department is convinced that the definition in the bill is aligned to the definition of the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change. Honourable members, I honestly know too little, and I don't think really yesterday I heard that it should be changed. That brings us then to number 31. The definition of adaptive capacity misses the opportunity to introduce elements, and it says the definition does not circumscribe the phrase to take advantage of opportunities. Now, they say the definitions used are internationally agreed terms within the IPCC. So I will go along with the department then in the absence of any other explanations that we have or differences. Then also CO2. Again, there, number 32 is something which we may consider to include carbon dioxide equivalent, or CO2 should be subscript, and therefore we amend it to read, well, CO2, I think that too should be in, is it subscript? Is that the right English word? The small 2, that should actually be, I think, a little bit higher up. So Ms. Niekerk, I think even here, when they try to correct it here, it should not be CO2 with, can I call it normal size? It should be a somewhat smaller one, but it should be in subscript format. So please, if you could just, when we send it through, note that that 2 should not be falling, can I call it, below the line, but should rather be somewhat above the line. Good. And then that the definition should refer to an equal society. And then they say the definition on just transition covers all the key aspects: social inclusion, poverty eradication, decent work. And they believe theirs is a balanced definition that is acceptable and delicately negotiated. So I thought we could accept the department's explanation there. Then in terms of the Western Cape Mobility Department, again, low carbon, climate resilient and ecologically sustainable economies and societies. Again, the transition to such an economy will require a significant shift in our transport system. We do know that. We now currently make use a lot of private vehicles, internal combustion engines, etc. But it's more of a comment that is made to reiterate the importance of that. It doesn't really propose an amendment to the bill. Number 35, the definition of mayor. The department is happy that the definition of mayor in the bills appears to be fine and aligned with the Structures Act, but they are open to discuss this with the legal advisor. Again, I think it's something which we might just highlight and say, please just check that you refer to the right sections in the Structures Act, and don't that the cross-reference may be incorrect. So I think the 35 should actually have been highlighted in yellow as well. Then 36, the comment from the Western Cape government is that the definition has not been updated in line with the new draft clause 10 in the bill, as draft clause 10 does not establish the Presidential Climate Commission, but rather continues the existing commission. Now, again, I think it's something which we may highlight. They say the words established in terms of section 10 in the draft definition should be replaced with referred to in section 10. And I think that's something that we can also include. It is indeed clear that they would like the current, can I call it, informal Presidential Climate Commission to be formalized in terms of this bill, and therefore it's not a new commission to be established. But again, it is something which I think legal people can sort out. Obviously, they can continue in name, but in their character, they might be a completely new commission, which would then make the word establishment relevant in this regard. Good. Then number 37, subsector. They propose that the definition of sector be included to ensure better alignment with the IPCC definitions of sectors. Again, it seems to me as if the department accedes to that, and that it is something which they believe can be discussed and be included in our negotiating mandate. 38. There are a number of acts being referred to, and they say the Structures Act is not used in the content of the bill. It's only used in the definition of certain terms and is properly referenced. So I believe that one we can go with, or accept the response from the National Department. The next one it seems to me that as if the targets will in due course be published once it's been agreed to. So hopefully that one doesn't need require a change in the bill. The Western Cape has also suggested that we include milestone targets for specific years to monitor if South Africa is on track. I must say, honourable members, I am concerned about the targets in a piece of legislation. While targets should be set, I'm not sure if legislation should be setting those targets. And in this regard, I believe that my support would go to say that let's not include targets in legislation, but rather let the Presidential Climate Commission agree to targets which we, as far as I know, which we then, in terms of international treaties, accept as targets for each and every country that are signatories to those agreements. Again, the next one is just we welcome and we urge. So again, I think that is noted by us. Then 41, where they say the word should is ambiguous, and that the phrase used can be subjectively interpreted, and it is submitted to replace should with must, and here the department has said should can be changed to must. So if I may propose that we also change that, particularly as I've said when we started this morning, that there is a general feeling from the submissions we received that this piece of legislation must be made stronger. So in that regard, I think it's something that we can also include. Then there's a concern that on page 8, the draft clause 4 can be interpreted to mean that it only applies to the state. Again, the department believes that this is a standard provision in legislation, and in terms of the National Environmental Management legislation, that this is a standard provision that's already there. Then 43, some definitions are proposed, for example, for internal waters and terrestrial waters. Now, the department believes that is not necessary to define what is meant by internal waters and terrestrial waters. I'm happy to go along with the department there. Then number 44, the new draft subclauses which were inserted are misplaced, as the heading of the draft clause is application of Act. Again, the state law advisor felt, and this is the point which we discussed yesterday, this will amount to a substantial amendment and will require further amendments to the A list, which is not possible at this stage. So it is regrettable that we are all now being shoehorned into finalizing this piece of legislation right at the end of the parliamentary term, because it seems to me that there is acceptance that it would be a good amendment, but that we, and I think we all know that time is extremely limited now. And I think it's one of those unfortunate situations where you are caught between a rock and a hard place. We certainly believe that the benefits of this proposed legislation will exceed the disadvantages, and therefore rather then let's go forward, although we know that this can be improved. So again, I would not include that in our draft mandate. In any case, I don't want to preempt what the NCOP will do with this, but my impression is that they are also under pressure. Can we go on to 45?
Okay, Chairperson, can I just comment on that, please?
Yes, please do.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. There's a degree of urgency with regard to passing this bill, but perhaps we can include it and then flag it for possible
Future
sort of amendment in the seventh Parliament. You know, something to that effect, just to put it on the agenda, so for consideration in the seventh Parliament. Okay.
Yeah, accepted. I think that would be good, and at least we can then afterwards say, you know, we tried, or we did highlight that. Yeah, no, thank you very much for that input. Accepted. 45. There it says all organs of state have functions that would be affected by climate change, and therefore the words a power or performance of function that is affected by climate change may be too restrictive, as it does not include powers and functions which contribute to climate change. It is suggested that a mechanism be put in place or mandated to highlight and address these conflicts. Now, it seems to me as if the department does not fully subscribe to this, and that they say conflicts are regulated in terms of the Intergovernmental Relations Framework Act. And I think we can therefore just note that. 46, again, they say we would like the climate change bill to use stronger language. Again, I think we note that. Then the second one also from them, they say the different roles and duties, as well as how the respective departments are meant to implement a bill, could be more specific. I think we note this, but the role and obligation of the minister are clearly outlined in the bill with the consultation requirements. So hopefully with those consultation, the clearer targets, etc., would flow from that. So again, I think I'm satisfied by the department's explanation. Then number 48, the draft clause provides for provincial forums on climate change, and they want the provincial air quality officer to be included in such a forum. Now, again, the department says these forums will operate and governed by the Intergovernmental Relations Act framework, and that air quality matters will continue to be managed under the Air Quality Management Act. So that one is not can I say deleted? It is still relevant. And again, the input that we've received is that it is unclear, and that it obviously, I think that little bit of leeway is actually good, and that air quality authorities be included in the climate change forums. I think obviously they may be included as it is deemed fit. My concern is that I don't think that all provinces do have you know, the necessary trained air quality officers. So let's give the government that leeway to include them where they can contribute to the debate, and obviously where they aren't such officers, then obviously the forums can still proceed. Then the next one, Ms. Niekerk, is 49. The Premier's Intergovernmental Forum on Climate Change. What they say is that these technical forums may include non-public players, So while it does not specifically provide or request or require that non-public sector players must be included, again, that option or that is available. So I think that one is fine. Then number 50, both draft paragraphs, that is paragraph 8.3b and 9.3b, refer to the need for the provincial and municipal forums on climate change to report to the President's Coordinating Council. However, again, no timelines or frequency of this reporting is provided in the bill. It may be necessary to align this municipal and provincial reporting to the PCC. Again, I think it is best that timelines and frequencies, perhaps, that will not be too prescriptive. And we have earlier said that perhaps we can say as deemed necessary, but not longer than 5 years. So I hope that aspect of timelines and the frequency of revision or responding is already covered by our earlier comment in this regard. Good. So then this brings us to number 53.
51, Chairperson.
Sorry, 51. Sorry, my mistake. The President's Coordinating Council, and then it says the President's, they say that the Intergovernmental Relations Framework Act establishes a body called such a council, and that the bill does not adequately explain the relationship between the Climate Commission and the Coordinating Council. And there it's submitted that the dash in the term coordinating, that's again a spelling proposal. Now, they say that the proposal about including a dash in the name of the Coordinating Council is noted, which means that, that spelling, we can include the proposal to change the spelling in our submission. Number 52, again, the word may or the word must. The department believes that the word may is appropriately being used in the bill, whereas One World believes it should be mandatory rather than optional. I don't know, honourable members, whether you want to include the word must. I do know that in general we are using that word very sensitively. We're not always, in support of making things mandatory for such structures. So I would say let's go with the word may, as it is currently being used. Obviously, this legislation, once enacted, will undergo some revisions and amendments as we go along. Then in 53, it says that every Premier and District Intergovernmental Forum would serve as the provincial and municipal forums on climate change once this bill comes into effect. Now, what they're saying is we're trying to leverage the existing mechanisms for the coordination as outlined in the Intergovernmental Relations Framework Act. The intention is not to establish a new regime, which I think we can say, well, let's not set up too many new structures. 54. The draft subclause provides for municipal forums on climate change. However, there is no mention of the government structures or setting up of forums at metropolitan level. Again, the proposal is that these forums are already there and do not need to be established in terms of this bill. Honourable members, unfortunately, I see my highlighted versions didn't save. So we now need to consider each and every one of these. Number 55, replace each with the, it's agreed to.
Chairperson,
Yes.
sorry, just for clarity, 54, do you want that included in the negotiating mandate?
No.
Oh, okay.
Because they say these forms are not to be established in terms of the bill. They are already there in terms of the intergovernmental relations framework.
Okay.
But then 55 is a wording improvement, which is being it seems to me finding acceptance with the department. So that one is to be included. Then 56. Again, One World says there's a need to strengthen capacitation and intergovernmental structures for climate change. Now, again, they believe that the wording of may is being used appropriately and not to replace that with the word must establish a technical support structure. So I think, you know, this is a first step, this climate change bill, and perhaps we must not be too prescriptive at this point in time. So I would not propose an amendment there. 57. This one does not state which person is obligated to list the commission as a public entity. Now, as the response is, listing is done by the National Treasury or the Minister of Finance. So they are happy that this is indeed something which will be addressed by the right forum there, or by the right person. We know it's the Minister of Finance. But then in terms of the proposal regarding Section 42 of the Constitution in relating to question 10.4b of the bill, and the proposed deletion of the word including in clause 10.4a is noted. So it seems to me it is something which the National Council of Provinces could consider, and I would like that then to be included in our negotiating mandate. Thank you. Then 58, the functions of the Provincial Climate Commission, and that as an overlap of functions with supporting provincial and local government. Now, the Presidential Climate Commission, as they say, is advisory in nature. Whilst the government is responsible for regulatory functions, functions of government at all levels are clarified in the bill. So 58, it seems to me, is something which we can not ignore, but we don't need to include that in our negotiating mandate. 59. That the climate risks are not defined. Now, as they say, the intention is not to name and define all the hazards in the bill. Honourable members, I also believe there may even be additional hazards that we don't know of currently, and that it not be, limited to things such as floods and droughts and so on. So the comment is noted, and we must now decide whether we want to reword that paragraph to advise government on the mitigation of climate change impacts, including through the reduction of emissions of greenhouse gases, strengthening disaster risk reduction and management capacities, and adapting to the effects of climate change. I think it's something which we could submit, even though the department says, we don't need to list all the risks, but in this sentence we're not limiting ourselves in terms of the risks. So I think that one we can include. Then number 60, again, the Western Cape Department of Infrastructure says the Presidential Commission should involve officials who are responsible for climate change, and departmental officials should engage these climate change experts on a technical level. It is recommended that the climate change bill should consider including a technical forum that will include officials from local, provincial, and national governments to engage the climate change experts. Now, what they say is that the Presidential Climate Commission will be independent and the relevant ministry will be invited to the commission. Now, the suggestion from the Western Cape Department of Infrastructure is that departmental officials be appointed as the executive director to ensure the sharing of information and avoid duplication of efforts between the three spheres of government and the Presidential Climate Commission. That one seems to be a strong argument for me. I am concerned that eventually the work of the Presidential Climate Commission may be too advisory, and that, you know, if we really want to see action happening on the ground, and particularly from government side, that some departmental officials be held responsible for some of these functions. So 60, I think, is also something which we can contain in our response to the NCOP. 61. This is about the Presidential Commission on Climate Change, where they believe that the process for nominating representatives does not include an option for stakeholder groupings to nominate and recommend appointees. Now, what they say is the nomination process will be an open call. So it seems to me as if stakeholder groupings would get an opportunity to nominate and recommend. So I think that one is covered. 62, again, environmental management frameworks are key instruments, it is being said, and it is recommended that draft clause 15 be amended to add an additional new draft subclause 15.6 along the following lines. A metropolitan or district municipality climate change response implementation plan contemplated in subsection 1D must form a component of the relevant environmental management framework adopted in terms of environmental management framework regulations. I believe this is a very strong proposal, nicely worded, and I would propose that we support that inclusion of a new clause, subclause 15.6, as proposed there in 62. In paragraph or line 63, again, it's the once every 5 years, which they believe is insufficient. Now, again, I think 5 years at least is something which we mentioned earlier, and it does limit revision to be at least every 5 years. While I realize that some people would like this to be more often, I think let's, for a start with this, with the 5 years as proposed. It can always be sharpened up as we go along, and also because councils, etc., run in 5-year terms. I think let's for the time being stick to the 5 years. Then also paragraph B, which should be moved to before B, and I think that one we can accept. That in paragraph 15.1 B, B can't refer to a paragraph that follows. So rather let refer to a preceding paragraph. I think that is just legal drafting principles, which is good. Number 65. Again, they propose that, or request and say, additional building blocks are required that articulate how the plan will be monitored and evaluated. Again, they say this is an operational question, which is therefore not necessarily to be prescribed within legislation. 66, the requirement for municipalities and frontline ministries to address climate change in detail is a critical step. This is a comment which is noted. 67, an MEC and a mayor of a metropolitan or district municipality, as the case may be, at least within 1 year of the publication of this strategy and plan, undertake a climate change needs and response assessment for the entity that that person is responsible for. Now, it is vital to assess municipal constraints and provide assistance in terms of resource capacity to municipalities that will face challenges in complying with this bill in the development of climate change needs and response assessment reports. Honourable members, I propose that we include this as well in our mandate, because climate change is everybody's responsibility, and it may be, knowing the vast differences in sizes and capacity of local governments, it may be necessary to provide support or assistance. And I think that's an extremely valid remark for consideration, that the bill should provide for the ability to go in and support where capacity is lacking. 68, include economic sectors. That does not make sense. Now the department has been quiet there. It is suggested that the paragraph includes economic sectors and businesses, and the proposal is to amend along the following lines: risks and vulnerabilities that may arise, and areas, ecosystems and communities that are vulnerable. I propose that we include that as well. Again, it's nicely drafted. I always appreciate it when those that comment give us alternate wordings, etc. And the next one, risks. There's a proposal that the term or the word risks be changed and strengthened to include risks and hazards. Now, I believe it is something which can be considered. I don't think when you speak of risks and hazards that you need to enumerate all the hazards in that paragraph, so that we can send through. 70, again, the draft paragraph is reflected under the climate change needs and response assessment, but speaks to the climate change implementation plan. And I'm going to jump. It is suggested that the draft paragraph be amended to reflect measures and mechanisms that have been implemented or are already underway. Add a reference to the identification of human and financial needs required for implementation. Now, the department says the response plan should take into account the guidelines to be provided by the minister. The guidelines will be more detailed of what the plan should entail. So, honourable members, I think we can send it through to the NCOP that that paragraph 15(2)(e) be amended. It makes it a bit stronger, which I think we can propose to the NCOP. Line 71, again, this time paragraph 15(3)(a). Again, the Western Cape government says it is not clear whether this response plan must include consideration of the nature and characteristics of the province or metropolitan or district municipality. that arise. So if you could just scroll down, Ms. Niekerk. The proposal is to consider amending the wording so that contextual and spatial considerations must also inform the response implementation plan, and not only the needs and response assessment. I think that is something that we could include. Ms. Niekerk, may I just ask, we may be able to see a somewhat bigger screen if you go up to the top right, not right in the corner, but next to where your face appears with your mouse. There, that's it, just above editing. I don't know why that one is now grayed out. Have you tried that? Yes, ribbon display options. I think you can. It doesn't want to. Okay. Yeah, that's it. That option that just appeared. Auto hide ribbon. Oh, there it is. You will see that now we've got a little bit more text in front of us, particularly where it jumps from one post to another. Okay, so then the next one, am I right, would bring us to 72?
That's right, Chairperson, 72.
Good. Again, they are concerned that we would like to enumerate all the hazards in this paragraph, but I think we could adopt the rewording to say it's not only adaptation and mitigation, but also risk reduction and risk management. I think that is good. 73 is just a proposal to clarify. Now, the response is that the minister will provide that. So that one, I think we can jump. 74, again, the proposal here is that the climate change response implementation plans should integrate with the IDP process, and it should not be seen as a standalone chapter. This is indeed, I think, accepted. The only problem is that we don't have, a specific wording in this regard to do that. So obviously it is open for municipalities, and it will probably be best practice in when they draft their IDPs, integrated development plans, that climate change be contained as one of the variables to be considered there. But it's not excluded currently, so I think we can go on to number 75. Again, it indicates that the National Minister for the Environment must, in consultation with the ministers responsible for the functions listed in Schedule 2, develop and publish a national adaptation strategy. Now, here it is about the sequencing of these strategies and plans, because within 2 years of the climate change bill coming into operation, and as they say, clause 15 indicates that an MEC and a mayor of a metropolitan or the mayor of a district municipality must undertake a climate change needs and response assessment. I think that with that we can all go along. If you could just scroll down slightly, Mr. Kerk. Now, again, it is recommended that the time frames be reconsidered to ensure that the purpose of the climate change bill is achieved and is responsive. The problem that we just have is that they don't guide us. They don't tell us what the proposal is in terms of the time frames. Do they want the time frames to be stricter or not? So unfortunately, that one, I think we cannot really act on, as it's not clear what that submission would like to be changed. 76, also the Department of Infrastructure. It is recommended that the climate change needs and response assessment should be reviewed annually to ensure these documents are responsive to rapidly changing circumstances, and not 5 years. I am concerned when government try to make legislation that's a bit overly ambitious and that we don't have the resources to really implement that. And if it's fine with you, honourable members, I would say let's just first walk before we want to run, and that we stick with the 5 years as currently contained in the bill. 77, again, there's a request for this clause to be more detailed. Again, it's in the form of questions, so it's very difficult for us then to mandate the NCOP with practical proposals. So even though we may agree with Green Pop, they don't help us a lot in showing what they really propose. 78, again, they ask for more information regarding the mechanism, associated timeframes, and how this will work is required in the bill. Again, we are not being served there with a nice proposal. That paragraph has received comments from more than one entity. One world group proposed that the bill must include and indicate the components and factors that will prescribe the type of financing available or how it will be managed, which I presume may be problematic at this point in time, although we believe it is important that financing be made available. Then also they suggest a deadline be set within a suitable time frame, which will enable all downstream activities to take place. Again, the department believes that the empowering clauses are adequate. So I think in that respect, we need to move on to the next one. As I've said, let's hope that with future amendments, if people then still feel that that is something which should be addressed, that it will be brought about. Then the Western Cape Mobility Department, in terms of chapter 40, it's more of a comment where they say it needs to be aware and report on developments at the international level, which may have an impact on South Africa's export market. I may just add that recently I attended a summit on the just energy transition, and it was said that while we're an exporter of aluminium, more and more international buyers may be insisting that it be what they call green aluminium, meaning that the electricity used in the manufacturing process comes from a sustainable source and not being the product of fossil fuels, etc. So it's a valid submission, but again, it is not, I believe, something to be enacted or being captured in legislation. Item 82, it's important that adaptation occurs at local government level. I think we would all agree with that. Not again, it is not a specific proposal. 83, the use of the term periodically is vague. We have heard that comment previously as well. It is suggested that the regular period, perhaps every 5 years, be referred to ensure that it is still appropriate. I think it's something which we can send through to the NCOP for their consideration. Again, as I've said, the wording could be something like it should be done regularly, but at least once every 5 years. 84, the bill does not make reference to financing, and as we say, financing is important. specifically for us at provincial level, and that is the whole purpose of the NCOP, is to look after the interests of provinces. And I would propose that we adopt that amendment, and that we also submit to the NCOP that provinces will be requiring financing in order to be climate smart, etc. Good, and that proposed one, that the paragraph be amended to read that it be based on best available scientific evidence and peer-reviewed scientific information, that be included in the legislation. Then also on the same paragraph 17.2, that wording amendment be passed on to the NCOP to include a consideration of the potential impacts of climate change on the environment of the Republic and associated social, economic, and environmental vulnerabilities. The next one, again, the word periodically, it says as required, but not longer than every 5 years. And then also pages, or the clauses 18 and 19. Again, what we have there is not a specific proposal, but where it says separate and clarified what should be catered for in the strategies and plans respectively. Again, it's very difficult for us to mandate the NCOP if we don't have a clear proposal in this regard. And the department says that the strategy and plan will be contained in one document, the National Adaptation Strategy. Number 88. Again, One World response is that it's not clear in this section who will manage the coordination of climate change adaptation activities in the Republic. And they propose that the details of this should be included and that it be addressed as part of the implementation plan. The department, however, feels that the climate change response plan will be inclusive of the adaptation elements, and they say these can be more specific in the guidelines, noting that this is just a framework legislation. So obviously there will be guidelines, and hopefully One World's views would be accommodated in there. Paragraph 18.5c, we have the proposal from them to include disaster risks or hazards in Chapter 3, Section 15.2a. Again, the department believes that this can be standardized and elaborated on in the technical guidance to undertake the needs assessments, and that we don't need to, at this point, amend the bill in this regard. Number 90, there's a question, can the required adaptation response go beyond what the National Adaptation Strategy and Plan specifies? And they just say provide clarity. Now, I do believe that the bill doesn't preclude entities to go further or go beyond what the National Strategy and Plan specifies, so therefore no proposed amendment there. Then draft clause number 20, there's a proposal to include a subclause that deals with the data and information needs of bona fide climate change researchers, specifically to make these available at no cost or for only an administrative fee. While it seems to me that the department accedes to that, then it's a very good proposal. They say the bill is not focused on addressing the data sharing policies of various organizations. However, honorable members, I do believe that data sharing has become so important, and especially in a newly researched field such as climate change, that I would support the department's proposal that information be made available at least a cost price, and not and that it be freely shared for researchers. I think it's extremely important. So number 91, that proposal, I believe, should be contained in our mandate. 92, where Green Pop proposes that the chapter should include a section on ecosystem restoration and nature-based solutions to the impacts of climate change. The various proposals that they make, where they say, where is the commitment to renewable, not GHG emitting energy? And they said that would be in the integrated resource plan of the Department of Mineral Affairs and Energy, that this bill is not restricted to an energy related aspects, and therefore while I believe there is value in the possibility of mitigating climate change by ecosystem restoration, I think that is just one of the options that is available to us. And I don't believe that that is necessarily or necessary to be included in the bill. Can we go on to 93? Thank you so much. Again, from the Western Cape government, it is suggested that the emissions inventory and reporting be dealt with more comprehensively. Again, it's difficult in the absence of a real proposal where they believe it should be dealt with. But we can, just comment and give that through to the NCOP and propose that the legislation give greater clarity on the emissions inventory and the reporting in terms of emissions. Project 90, again, they state what we know, an urgent need to mitigate emissions. And they say the socioeconomic cost of not reducing emissions is to be far greater than the cost associated with emissions reductions. Now, I believe there's a general acceptance of that statement. But again, they do not help us in proposing specific clauses or improvements to specific clauses in this regard. And it seems to me as if when we draft the legislation, you do not want to limit legislation by year numbers, etc. This piece of legislation may be still exist 30 years from now, and to then say, but there must be targets within the bill speaking to the year 2030, when this legislation is aimed to go far beyond 2030. I accept the department's point that such dates and targets is perhaps not appropriately dealt with in legislation. So can we go on to 95? And Ms. Nikak, you must indicate if I'm not clear enough what should be included and what should not be included. I do hope I give you enough clarity in this regard. Again, the Department of Infrastructure says it recommends that clause 21 should specify the time frame for the minister to determine the national GHG emissions trajectory. Now, again, my comments just now, I think, do apply. That it's perhaps not appropriate for legislation that is meant to stand for many decades to indicate certain targets, etc. And the target setting, etc., should perhaps be provided for in the legislation. And my impression is that this legislation does provide for targets to be set, but that the targets not be defined in the legislation. Which brings us to 96. Again, no time frames is the comment, and that they would like a time frame. Again, as they say, the clause provides that until such time as the minister publishes the national greenhouse emissions trajectory, that the last nationally determined contribution serves as the trajectory, and that it doesn't need to be contained in the legislation itself. The important thing is that the minister is allowed to, by this legislation, to publish such proposed trajectories. In terms of number 97, again, they say there should be an annual review. And they say this should be annual review. Once every 5 years will not lead to effectual change being made, and will lead to reactive rather than proactive policy making. Again, my impression has been that we must not expect too much of government in terms of short time frames, as in government with all the public participation, etc., that it would be extremely difficult for government to do such reviews on an annual basis. And again, one might perhaps propose that we rather say, stick with at least every 5 years that such a review be done. 98, the proposal is that the words may must be changed to will to make it stronger. The department is concerned, however, that not all external factors will trigger a review of the trajectory, and therefore that the may in this case is attempting to at least address this issue. Which brings us to 99, so therefore not to be included in our negotiating mandate. 99, the draft clause makes no mention of provinces and local government in support of the emissions targets. Now, again, the guideline that has been referred to is meant to address the allocation of provincial and local scale emissions. So again, I think it is good if the guidelines are just provided for. Then the inconsistent use of singular and plural is used in the draft words. For example, ministers responsible for each sector versus ministers responsible for the administration of sectors or subsectors. I don't know, quite honourable members, the differences or the difference that the department would like to address by that. I don't know if it's the capital that is being addressed by this comment. The inconsistent use of the singular and plural is used in the draft clause. I think the brackets may be in the wrong place there, where the S may be in brackets. But again, I think this is falls under our previous point that we've made, where we've asked that this will be set for grammatical review, so people just make sure of the wording and spelling and so on. Good. The list of greenhouse gas sectors will be listed by the minister. That is included already in the subclauses 22 and 21 and 2. But then it says it's not clear whether ministers responsible for each sector will participate in this decision by the minister. And I presume that is now the minister, the national minister that is being referred to. So it is submitted that reference to the role of provincial and local government in terms of sectoral emission targets must be included in the bill. Ensure consistency in the wording of the draft clause, establish more clearly who will participate in the identification of the greenhouse gas emitting sectors and subsectors, and what method of appeal would be available to sectoral role players. I suggest that we do send that through to the NCOP, which brings us to number 100, where the department says there is some confusion about the difference between sector emission targets and the carbon budget approach. And there's therefore in bold a need for greater clarity on the different functions. It suggested that extensive consultation be undertaken with the private sector and relevant sectoral departments to ensure buy-in to, setting off, and effective implementation of the sectoral emissions targets. Now, as they say, this can only happen once the bill is passed into law, and that engagements in terms of the allocation processes shall be done in terms of National Environmental Management Act principles, as the climate change bill is a sectoral environmental management act. So, honourable members, I hear the need, or the government, the Western Cape's plea for a greater clarity on the different functions, and I propose that that also be included. Number 101, a National Mobility Department, again about sectoral emission targets should be inclusive of a transition plan depicting a time frame wherein targets should be achieved and realized. I think this is, the department says this is addressed in paragraph 22.6 and 22.7F. So I think that one we can accept the explanation from the National Department. Then also in that same paragraph, one word says it's not clear how the implementation of the sectoral emission targets will be regulated and enforced. Again, I think it's that monitoring and evaluation that was people were looking for earlier. I think it's something that we could just add or send through to the NCOP, because it seems to me as if monitoring is a concern, and may I also say monitoring the monitors, making sure that they do their work properly. I think it's something that may be a concern and needs to be addressed. Can we go on to 106 now?
106, Chairperson.
Yes, thank you. Again, it's just a remark by Green Pop that goals and targets are constantly being missed, which is a serious concern. But unfortunately, we do not have the solution to that. Good. And then also the Western Cape government says that in terms of that paragraph 22.4c, that the wording needs to be clarified. It's unclear whether this refers to 5-year increments. And the response is that clause 22.4c reads as follows: targets must include qualitative and quantitative greenhouse gas emission reduction goals for the first 5 years, the subsequent 5 to 10 years, and for a 10 to 15-year period thereafter. It seems to me as if it's relatively clear, but obviously if it's not clear to everybody, then I think it could be reworded to ensure that it refers to 5-year increments. And it seems to me as if the department is also stating that this aspect can be finalized in consultation with the parliamentary legal advisors. So I think that is indeed something for them to consider. 108, the comment there is from the Western Cape Mobility Department, where it says a jobs resilience plan to be developed for the sectors greatly impacted by emission targets. For example, the fossil fuel sector referred to in the National Climate Change Response White Paper. This white paper requires the development of a sector jobs resilient plan to protect vulnerable groups whose livelihoods will be impacted as a result of climate change, as well as through plans prepared to transition to a low carbon resilient economy. I can just confirm, honourable members, in that Just Energy Transition Summit, where we had representatives from both Ireland and Australia, that particularly Australia was also affected by the move away from fossil fuels, or particularly coal mines. And indeed, I think it would be extremely necessary for particularly a province like Mpumalanga to be able to retrain mine workers in skills which would be needed as mining is scaled down in the future. So again, I would strongly support that we include 108 in our submission to the NCOP. 109, again, the Department of Western Cape Government is asking for clarity on whether sectoral role players will be able to give inputs or to appeal the determination of sectoral or subsectoral emissions targets. Now, the department is happy that it will be subject to consultation, as stated in clauses 29 and 28 and 29. So, yeah, I just think it does not quite those clauses deal with consultation, but not with any appeals that people may want to lodge or any requests for review of those targets. And I think, therefore, that's a valid point by the Western Cape government. In 110, again, it's about the socio-economic impacts that a move away from fossil fuel may have. And it seems to me we need to seriously consider that suggestion that updated socio-economic impacts of introducing the sectoral emissions targets must be undertaken to be better understand and mitigate negative impacts while promoting any positive impacts. Honourable members, again, I think this is a very extremely valid statement. We don't quite know where in the legislation it should be included, but what I can tell you is that if we want to be effective in addressing climate change, we must address the potential hardship of those that up to now relied for their monthly income on the mining of fossil fuels such as coal, etc. And the transition will only be supported by the general public, and the transition would only be politically acceptable if we can mitigate to a large extent the potential negative effects of trying to move to a more environmentally friendly dispensation. So 110, I think, is an important point to make to the NCOP. 111, Ms. Niekerk. Again, they are concerned, One World is concerned that this point has no deadline and that it's also made redundant by section 22.9, which also has no deadline for policy adoption, and they are concerned that it may draw out the process. I do believe that, as I've said, we must not be setting deadlines which eventually can't be met. And unfortunately, government is a slow-moving animal, and we do not want government to be in a position where they can be taken to court because the deadlines were a bit overly ambitious. So that one, I believe we should not include, but then every 5 years, that it says at least before every 5 years is a good addition. So the 112, I think, should be included. Then 113, again, questions are being asked there. What if we do not achieve our targets? And that is why we've said that, there will have to be monitoring, and the bill should be clearer even on the monitoring and evaluation on progress towards these targets. Now, again, it's something which will be dealt with in the regulations according to the department, and I think that is probably the right place for it to be for the time being, until we have greater clarity as to what is possible in time and in trying to mitigate climate change. Then 114, which deals with paragraph 22.7, 22.8, and then 22.9. Again, it's the wording. The can be deleted in paragraph 22.7F. So let's pass that through to the NCOP. Then the next one is perhaps not clear enough. I think that is the one where it says, within 5 years and then 10 to 15 years and so on. So let's request the NCOP to clarify that one. And the next one where it says, given that it took 9 years for the integrated resource plan to be updated, and we still don't have an updated integrated energy plan after an even longer period, it is unlikely that the electricity or energy sector policies could be implemented within a year. And it says that we require more realistic timelines. In this case, it seems to me as if the department response says, no, let's keep those timelines. They are under the impression that the Integrated Resource Plan 2019 is under implementation and therefore has implications for the country's climate change mitigation objectives. So in this case, it seems to me as if the department is taking a harder line than the Western Cape government, and I think we must accept that and then go along with that. 117, it says that the editorial input relating to the presidency will be addressed in consultation with the Office of the Chief State Law Advisor and the Parliamentary Legal Advisor, and that these reports become publicly available. And I think it's important and something which we can support. Then no penalties are provided for non-compliance to sectoral emissions targets. Again, I think what we don't need to provide specific penalties, but I think what we must just ensure is that penalties would be a possibility, or the determination of penalties must be provided for in the legislation. So I think we can forward that point to the NCOP as well. 118, again, it seems to me that as if Project 90 wants a list in the climate change bill of greenhouse gases, and the department is saying no, they believe there should be greater flexibility in terms of the gases that must be published, which I would suggest we go along and say, let's not now draft a list of greenhouse gases, a list which will require a revision of the legislation if we want to amend that list. So I think it is appropriate that that list is not contained in the legislation. Department of Infrastructure, also on draft clause 23, it is recommended that clause 23 should include timeframes that can hold persons, entities accountable for failure to comply with the legislation and facilitate a just transition. And what the department says is timeframes can be considered. And I think let's keep it to that. Let us not be the ones determining those timeframes, but just say, you know, please consider timeframes for compliance by various entities, and ensure that the bill provides for such timeframes to be contained in regulations to be issued. 120 is a question. So I think we can go on to number 121. The publication replaces the Declaration of Greenhouse Gas Priority Pollutants promulgated under NEM Aqua, the Air Quality Act. And again, they say greenhouse gases shall be assessed on a case-by-case basis. 122, again, a question: what is the threshold? And the department's response is the threshold shall be determined before the beginning of a 5-year commitment period for carbon budgets. So again, we cannot, you know, from the proposal in 122, there's no definite proposal as to how the bill should be improved. 123, the department from the Western Cape says they are concerned that that paragraph may impose stringent requirements on certain industries like Sasol and Eskom and may result in increased costs to comply. Now again, the responses: the threshold shall be determined before the beginning of a 5-year commitment period for carbon budgets, and any emitter that exceeds the threshold in terms of total greenhouse gas emissions must be allocated a carbon budget. So again, unfortunately, the suggestion that we have only says that due consultation is undertaken to address the matter, but that in the interest of the climate crisis, decision making should be expedited. I think we all agree that decision making should not be prolonged; it should not be dragged out, but that we after due consultation, that decision making should be expedited. Again, we don't know how they want to rephrase that paragraph, so it is a bit problematic, and therefore I don't think we are in a position to send that through to the NCOP in the form of an alternate proposal. Again, 124 is accepted by the department, and I think we should send that one through. One World Group says that the word justifiable to characterize the types of constraints which will be considered. So they say there needs to be a description of what constitutes a reasonable constraint. which should be taken into account, and that the word justifiable be used, and there's agreement to this proposal, so I think it's something that we can send through, and perhaps even indicate that in some of these cases the department agrees. And the same also applies to paragraph 23(5)(e). And then when it comes to paragraph 20, it's line number 127. The proposal by Green Poppy suggests amending the sentence, the minister may, by notice in the Gazette, revise and amend with an explanation the relevant list. Now, the department believes that this is inherent in the options already described in A to C, as these would have to be explained in the notice, so they do not agree with the inclusion of the words with an explanation. I believe we leave that one. 128. Western Cape government, that there should be an obligation on the minister that the word may be replaced with must. And they say in some cases the review might no longer trigger the need to amend the relevant list due to conditions stipulated, and therefore they want to remain with may, which I accept. 129. Again, no timeframes are provided as to when the carbon budgets must be allocated. And the proposal is recommended that as far as possible, the carbon budget should be allocated in a consultative manner to ensure effective implementation. A critical part of this will be the inclusion of how carbon budgets will be enforced and what support may be made available for remedial actions. For example, if a cement manufacturer does not have sufficient revenue or budget due to tight margins to be able to meet the target, should support funding be made available to assist in retrofitting the plant so that the company can comply? Now, it is a difficult one because, you know, this would require us spending public money then on private land and in financially supporting private companies, which I believe may be problematic to government, because why do you support the one private company and not the other? And in terms of our budget constraints, which will be with us for the foreseeable future, I think while this is in the format of a question, that we cannot, you know, amend this to provide for that possibility. Good, so thank you very much. That brings us to the next page, 130. Again, that proposal is accepted by the department, the deletion there. 131, One will propose that it should include an additional point specifying that the plan will consider science and environmental options, best practice, etc. Now, the department's response says that the mitigation plan is meant to support the implementation of the carbon budget, and therefore this is implied in paragraph 24, 2B, C, and F. So it seems to me that one is been dealt with or in the legislation already. Then if we go to paragraph 24, 4, and again, it's only the Western Cape Department that responded to this one. it says, while the draft paragraph is supported, there is concern that the bill could result in a reporting burden on a person to whom a carbon budget has been allocated. Now, obviously, we don't want to burden role players in this regard. To ease the reporting burden, it is suggested that the department develop appropriate guidelines to clarify the reporting parameters of the mitigation plan. Additionally, the department should develop a one-stop shop online system that can be used by such person to submit the greenhouse gas related data and information. Now, the proposed carbon budget plan regulations will provide clarity and details on the minimum information required to allocate, monitor and assess performance of carbon budgets, and assessment of private sector financial needs is already being performed through the biennial update report and the soon to be developed biennial update report under the Paris Agreement. They said this process is formalized and does not need to be legislated, which is something which I accept. And that would bring us then to line 133, also dealing with the very same paragraph, which says the minister must approve greenhouse gas mitigation plans. However, there's no time frame indicated in this approval. Suggest improving a time frame, and the department says details on, and I read in their time frames, shall be addressed in the carbon budget or mitigation plan regulations. So again, it's best for that time frame to be left in the regulations. 134, the pollution prevention plan initially approved, and there is concern that the approved plans may no longer be appropriate or detailed enough given the carbon budget allocated to that facility, and that clarity is needed. The response from the department is the process now is that the mitigation plans should be signed in the mandatory carbon budgets. This implies the existing mitigation plans shall be reviewed in accordance with the mandatory carbon budgets that shall be allocated after the bill is passed into law. So it seems to me as if the department believes this is clear enough. The annual report must be made available to the public, and they said that is already addressed in clause 31. Then, so not to be included in our negotiating mandate. 136, to provide certainty to businesses, such timeframes should be specified to ensure that businesses are ready and prepared for the phase down and phase out of a plan. Again, the department provides that timeframes will be addressed in this section or in the notice contemplated in clause 25.1a, as explained in clause 25.1d. So the department believes that that is dealt with adequately enough. Then 137 from the Department of Infrastructure. Again, it's recommended that clause 25 should include timeframes that can hold departments and government entities accountable. Again, timeframes shall be addressed in the notice contemplated. So specific timeframes, perhaps not a good idea to include that in the main act. 138. In 138, the proposal is that from Greenpop, that the ministers responsible for the greenhouse gases be allowed to have a say on what is or isn't phased out. Again, the timeframes and what is expected will apparently be addressed in the notice that is being provided for in clause 25.1a. So I think that one we can jump. Then 139, in order to minimize possible confusion, rather duplicate draft paragraph 23(3)(b) here with the necessary changes. Now, this clause is related to sectors to be allocated carbon budgets and to sectors related to the use of synthetic gases. I think the department is happy there. That's my impression, that there is not that much confusion as feared by the Western Cape government. 140, again, no deadline has been set for this action, and the response is that time frame shall be addressed in the notice contemplated in clause 25(1)(a). Then 141, project 90, which again calls for strong language. Now, the strong language will probably be determined in terms of the regulations, not only in its language, but also in the bar it sets for people to comply with. So I think that one will be addressed, and we don't need to respond to that. 142, again, the proposal by Green Prop is reframing this to something more like to encourage a change in behavior that leads to a phase down or a phase out of greenhouse gases amongst all sectors of society. It seems to me as if that is a good proposal, and that we can include that in our mandate. Then paragraph 27(1)(c), Western Cape says there should rather be an obligation. This paragraph should be made compulsory on the minister. Now, the department is concerned and say, well, the way in which this was drafted is a standard way in which they provide for such issues, and they differ that it be made compulsory for the minister. Perhaps if this is the standard way of drafting a regulation provision, I think I can go along with that. 144. Again, the department's response to say that they have used standard language and that the may should not be replaced with must. I don't know, honourable members, if you would like to go back to that paragraph. It has been 2 hours that we've been going along, and I certainly need a glass of water. May I pause here at 144 and ask that we just suspend proceedings for about 10 minutes, and then we'll continue, and then I'll be putting the question to you in terms of this replacement of mays with musts. Thank you. I see a thumbs up. Can we be back at 11:10 then? Thank you so much, members. that break. Thank you. I do see some thumbs up, meaning honourable members are with us. On 144, there's a proposal that the word may draft regulations be replaced with the word must draft regulations. The department's response is this is a standard way of drafting a regulation provision, and I'm happy to accept that. I do believe that there will be regulations, and that the minister will hardly skip an opportunity to regulate, particularly if you are mandated to achieve something, and that is normally done through regulation. So I'm happy to not include that in our mandate. 145. There's a vague proposal includes something related to consequences for sectors not complying with requirements to phase out or phase down greenhouse gases and incentives to promote phasing out and phasing down. Now, what the department is saying is that normally the regulations are meant to deal with penalties, compliance, and enforcement. And I think as legislators, we know that. Then 146, it can be interpreted to contradict draft paragraph 27(1)(d), and they say rather add draft paragraph 27(1)(d) here under 27(2)(b) to ensure that there is an obligation. The department believes there's no contradiction, so I think we can skip that one. Then 147, not all the cross-references seem to be correct. Check cross-references and ensure all relevant clauses are referred to. I think this is an important one that we need to pass on to the NCOP. There is indeed a long list of cross-references in that subclause 28(1), and some of them have been omitted. So, or the wrong clause has been quoted. So this must be double checked, and I think it's something important for us to pass on to the NCOP. Then 148. This draft subclause only covers the carbon budgets element of the bill, and it is suggested that the draft subclause is extended to cover all relevant clauses, including listed greenhouse gases and activities, and that the draft clause be added to include consultation with industry for draft clause 22. The department's response is that the submission is noted, and that the consultation requirements are already built into various clauses. It doesn't need to be repeated here. And clause 24 refers to allocation of a carbon budget to a person. The way clause 28(4) is drafted is fully aligned to 24 of the bill, and according to the department, an appeal beyond the minister's decision is to the courts. So they believe that option of appeal is being dealt with there. I must say, I think it would do no harm for the inclusion of consultation with the industry for draft clause number 22, on which the department has been required, as that 22 is proposed by the Western Cape government, and I think that one we should include in our letter to the NCOP. Then 149, again, it's more of a comment by Project 90 by 2030, and we note that. 150, that clause 29 actually deals with the call for public consultation. Now, the bill currently provides only for that call to be advertised in at least one national newspaper and in the Gazette. And I think in terms of our own experience and practices, I think we should ask the NCOP to consider expanding the public participation notices, but also the mechanism to include social media, ICT platforms or mechanisms as is mentioned here. And also to only, publish this in the Gazette and in one newspaper, I think is very restrictive, and it's possible that many people that should take note of the opportunity to comment may miss that, particularly if we think of the dwindling numbers, circulation numbers of newspapers. So I propose that we pass that one on to the NCOP, that they also include things like the website of the department and social media platforms. Then line 151. Again, cross-references should be reviewed and should be checked with the rest of the bill. I think that's an important one that we need to pass on to the NCOP. 152, where they speak of the development of adaptation scenarios, which requires public participation. Then the review of these scenarios 17.3 is not included. So the department accedes to that one, and I think clause 29.3 should be reviewed to also include clause 17.3. Then 153, again, the need for alternative notices to be included in the section, and there you see a number of social media, so that is being supported, and I think that we must pass on, and I think we are referring to more media than just the departmental website. Very few people are, in my experience, often go to departmental websites unless they are looking for something specifically there. Then 154, I think it's something which we can add to the bill and to that specific sub-clause within the period specified, the addition of those words. 155, Department of the Government of the Western Cape believe that there are inconsistencies between draft sub-clauses. And that, for example, NEMA states that certain powers and duties may not be delegated, whereas there may be an inconsistency and alignment there. So again, the department accepts or accedes to the fact that this provision can be drafted better to register this intention, and therefore I believe it should be included in our negotiating mandate. 156. There is no response from the department, but it is recommended that clause 32 indicates the penalties for government department and state-owned entities. Furthermore, it is suggested that the climate change bill explicitly indicate how the financial penalties will be managed and by whom. Honourable members, my experience has been that we should rather leave the determination of penalties to regulations which are more easily amended than in the main legislation itself, because what we found in the past is that a high penalty today, due to inflation and so on, will be, a far lesser penalty in 15, 20 years from now. So I believe that what we should be including in our mandate is to just say to the NCOP, in your response to the department, please pass on that there is a need for clarity on how government departments, state-owned entities will be penalized if they contravene the legislation. But please, include that as part of the regulations that the minister will be issuing. 157, there the proposal is that the penalty stipulated is too low and would not encourage compliance. Now again, subclause 32.2, speaks of a penalty liable to a fine not exceeding 5 million. So here, as I've said, penalties are included in the major legislation, or the main legislation. And as I've said, I think it's far better dealt with in subsequent, can I call it, legislation, not in the acts itself. But again, it's a start. We currently do not have such penalties, and I think I would be reluctant to adjust that currently that we have. So let's just note that one. Then the functions are not in alphabetical order. That is now in the schedule to the Act. And I think it's just easy. It's a summary of functions relevant to the development of sectoral emissions targets, and there's no order currently. I think it would indeed be an improvement if they can be sorted in alphabetical order. And then the next one is regarding electricity. One word says electricity does not necessarily fall under energy. And this is supported by the creation of the new Ministry of Electricity as a separate entity to the Department of Mineral Resources and Energy. And it should explicitly state electricity. The department, I think quite rightly, says that electricity is covered by the energy function. So I don't think that one needs to be forwarded onto the NCOP. 160, in Schedule 2, there's no indication under the heading in which draft clause reference is made to this schedule, and it should be amended. And it seems to me as if the department is also acceding to the fact that departments should be arranged in alphabetical order, and mineral resources and mining should be included, which currently is not included in the list. So I think 160, I would propose that we pass that one on to the NCOP. 161, it is again a comment from One World Group, to remove the Department of Energy as this does not capture electricity or mineral resources. Need to explicitly state the Ministry of Electricity and the Department of Mineral Resources and Energy. Honourable members, we have a problem in that legislation quite often refers to the names of government departments. And then we do know that those government departments' names from time to time change. For example, in the schedule, they speak almost as if it's you know, different departments for forestry, fisheries, etc. And I must say, I appreciate the heading there, which says national departments and state-owned entities responsible for certain functions required to develop a sector adaptation strategy and plan. And then they list agriculture, education, and so on. So I think it's a lesson that's been learned that one should not be referring to a specific departmental name, but rather say this is the department responsible for whatever it may be. Now, the question is just whether we want to include electricity as a separate one, or whether electricity is included on energy. I believe, in general, when people speak of, energy, that electricity is included there. And as I've said, it speaks of the department responsible for energy, which I'm open to that one, but energy includes electricity, even though it may be more than one department eventually that may need to be considered. 162, Schedule 3 of the bill provides for the amendment of NEMA by inserting a new paragraph in the definition of specific environmental management. It says act in NEMA, however, the existing definition of NEMA has or at the end of paragraph G. That or must be deleted. It can't remain at paragraph G as there is no longer the second to last paragraph in that definition. So again, the department accepts that that's an amendment to be effected by the Office of the Chief State Legal Advisor. So let's pass that one on to the NCOP. 163, and we're getting close to the end, honourable members. The memo on the objects of the bill, either this and in paragraph 321 or clause 18 should not be there, or there's something missing from the sentence. And again, the department accedes to that and say the submission is noted, memorandum to be updated. So we pass that one on. 164. Again, a remark by Green Pop, if progress is to be reported on annually, then there should also be an annual review of the sectoral emissions targets. Now, again, I understand the difference between reporting annually and the setting of targets in 5-year intervals. I'm happy for us to go with the 5-year intervals. You need to be able to show people a longer term aim, and not be too ad hoc in the setting of targets. So I think we note that one only. Then 165, again, the clause should not allow the minister to base this list on their own beliefs, but rather on the most recent science and evidence. Any reasons for including or excluding greenhouse gases from the inventory should be justified with robust scientific data. Now, again, it seems to me as if the department accedes to this and the memorandum should be updated. So let's include that in our mandate. Then 166, also in the memo on the objects of the bill. Again, the Office of the State Legal Advisor will, according to the undertaking from the department, update the memorandum. And I think, therefore, 166 is being accepted and will be forming part of our negotiating mandate. I believe that may be the last one, Ms. Niekerk, am I correct?
That is correct, Chairperson, yes.
Yes. Good. Thank you. Thank you very much, honourable members. I'm now going to then put all of the last 2.5 hours discussion to you and ask if there are any comments, whether you are happy for us then to include all of these ones that we indicated in our negotiating mandate. And I think it would be appropriate at this point in time to wish our procedural officer luck, because this is going to be an enormous task for her to be drafting that report to the National Council of Provinces. Thank you. I do note some hands. Firstly, that of the Honourable America.
Thank you, Chairperson, and let me also commend you for taking us through these 166 items, and I think that I could not have done a better job. Therefore, I would propose that the ones that we have indicated, throughout this particular process, that we include that in our negotiating mandate for NCPO delegates. Thank you.
Good. Thank you. Thank you very much. Honourable Murray.
Thank you very much, Chair. Chair, I would just like to second the proposal made by Member America, but also, again, congratulations and well done to yourself and to the procedural officer, Ms. Nikak, on the amazing work that you've done in pulling this together. I agree, I couldn't have done a better job if I tried. Well done.
Thank you. Thank you so much. And my sincere apologies that clearly my last draft didn't save with all the yellow light highlighted sections. Hopefully next time that will be even in the last version of that document. Thank you very much for that. Honourable members, this then brings us to the next item on our agenda, and that's the consideration and adoption of the draft committee minutes of the 21st and the 23rd of February. They were circulated, I think, late last night or early this morning. I'm not sure, Ms. Niekerk.
Late last night, Chairperson.
Late last night.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you. Mm-hmm. Thank you very much, honourable members. I do sincerely hope that you've had an opportunity to look at those. And I must say our procedural officer is exemplary in keeping us up to date with the circulation of the minutes, etc. I went through them carefully and I was quite happy with the way in which it was drafted. So thank you. That's page 3. We also adopted our quarterly report. Honourable members, can I just get an indication? I do note the hand first of Honourable America and then Honourable de Villiers.
Chairperson, thank you. I do propose that we adopt not only this set of minutes, but also the one of 23rd. The 23rd. Thank you.
Thank you. Honourable de Villiers.
I second it.
Thank you, honourable members. Let's just then quickly beam the 23rd on there, although it has been accepted without any amendments. But I think we do need to recognise the hard work. There you can see again the attendance register, and that one is where we adopted the mandate on the marine pollution Prevention of Ships Amendment Bill, and you might also recall that at that stage we drafted some questions to the National Department of Transport on the Kuwaiti ship transporting the 19,000 cattle, and Ms. Niekerk, must we still write that letter to the National Department of Transport?
Chairperson, I've already just dropped them an email to respond to that request.
Wonderful.
Yes.
Good. So these minutes have been adopted. Honourable members, there's just one other item that we still need to consider, and that was our draft committee report on our oversight visit to Beaufort West. Honourable members, there's just one aspect in that report that we need to clarify, and perhaps you might assist. You will recall that we got some feedback regarding the communities, the very large communities of the Beaufort West municipality in the Maritzburg region. But my impression was that the garlic initiative was undertaken not on the municipal communities, but that it was on a combination of land either in private possession or on a piece of land which they are renting at a very reasonable fee from the municipality. But that was I almost want to call it a residential plot and not part of the wider communities. I don't know if you can recall, you've been there, you've seen for yourself. Unfortunately, currently the garlic is not being produced. They only plant, I think, in March of every year. But the land which they pointed out to us, I'm not sure if that forms part of the communities.
That's correct. My recollection, Chairperson, that it is correct what you're saying.
Okay, good. So, Ms. Nikak, perhaps if you could just fact check that with the Department of Agriculture. I think the local people, they may have a clear indication, but here you have it that perhaps that specific sentence in the report may need to be revised, and then we will submit that again or submit that to this committee for consideration. Honourable members, are there any other aspects that you would like to raise under general? May I then just remind you that yesterday it was confirmed that we will not be meeting again this week, and that this Preservation of Agricultural Land Bill, which has been referred to us, has not been taken up in the program of the National Council of Provinces. And we do not want to incur costs and spend time inviting the public to comment on a piece of legislation and then going through a similar process than what we've gone through this morning, if the NCOP is not going to consider that at all. And therefore that meeting has been, for the time being, postponed until we get feedback from the NCOP. Ms. Nikak, am I correct that we're still waiting on feedback from the NCOP to the letters that we sent off last week?
That is correct, Chairperson, but our NCOP liaison officer is following up in order to get a response as soon as possible.
Wonderful. Thank you very much. Honourable de Villiers, I just saw you were unmuting yourself quickly and then muted again. You're happy. So, honourable members, thank you very much. Ms. Nikak, our next meeting will then therefore only be, is it in 2 weeks' time?
Yes, that's on the budget discussions on the 12th of March.
Good. And that will then be two separate meetings on the budget?
Two separate meetings, yes, yeah. That's correct. We have vote 9 from 9 till 1 on that Tuesday, the 12th of March. And then we have vote 11 from 2 till 6 in the evening.
Good. So, honourable members, as you can see, we are going to have a very full and demanding program. Therefore, I want to say thank you very much for this morning's attendance and your support. And I hope that between now and then there will be some rest for you as well. I wish you well. Thank you very much for your support, participation, and consideration of the items listed. And may you have a wonderful afternoon. Thank you very much. This meeting is adjourned.